Everyone, today I want to show you a bit about the difference between const, let and var when defining variables in JavaScript. So first off, if I try to define two constants with the same name, it's going to give me an error because the variable myConst has already been declared. If I try to change the value of myConst, it will once again give me an error. And that's because I'm trying to assign a new value to the constant variable. But what happens when you use the constant keyword inside a function? So this constant variable has the same name as my constant variable outside this function. And inside the function, if I console log, then it will access the constant defined within my function. But if I'm outside, it will access the other constant because that's what's within scope. If I create another function and try to change the value of myConst, it will error out. It's because I'm trying to assign to a constant, but you're not allowed to assign to a constant, and because there's no constant keyword, it won't let me create a new constant variable inside the scope. You can do this, create constants with the same name inside another block of code. So for example, an if statement, I can create a new constant. So I've created a new constant with the same name as my outer scope variable, myConst, and that works. And once I'm outside that scope again, it'll output what I initially defined my outer scope const as. When you create a constant object, like so, you can update the properties and even add new properties, and it'll allow you to do that. But if you try to reassign a new value to the constant object, it will fail because once again you can't assign to a constant object. So those are the key properties of a const. Now I'm going to move on to lets. So if I define a let, it'll output that value, so like so. And if I try to redeclare that a let with the same variable name, it'll fail because it's already been declared. But I can, for lets, you can change their value. So assigning a new value to my let will work. And you can see it output in the console down here. So what happens when you use the let keyword inside a block of code? Similarly to a constant, it will work. So we should see hi there new output to the console. And unlike a constant, you can change the value, so you should see hi there new 2. And because we've changed the value of a variable declared in the outer scope, you can actually see that the value has completely changed even once we exit out of this function. So if I show you that before, it will give you what you'd reassigned up here, even though it's executed after my let function. Because we've used the let keyword here, this is a new variable, so it hasn't updated this variable here. But this one, because it doesn't use the let keyword in front of it, it's updating the outer scope's my let variable. So if you're in a block of code, you can see the same sort of thing. Inside the block of code, it will console log this is my let, and outside the console log, it'll log hi there new2, because that's what's been updated to in that previous function that I showed you just a minute ago. If I do an update, then what you should see is that it outputs setting let inside if block twice. And that's because it's updated the my let variable from the outer scope, because once again it doesn't have that let keyword in front of it. So what happens when you create an object with the let keyword? So you can create the object, you can change its properties and create new properties, and you can even change the value of the object, which is the let object. Let should be pretty much your default if it's a value that's going to change, and constants just should be for things that are constant, obviously. I'm going to show an example of hoisting and how let is different to var. So if I uncomment this line here, it's going to error, and the reason it errors is because this my hoisted let variable is hoisted but is not declared, so when it tries to run this function it fails. You'll see different see the difference with var, and I'll run that now. So if I clear the console, I've got this hoisting var function called before my hoisted var is defined. And so with vars, they hoist them to the top and initialize them to undefined, which is different from the let, which just remain undeclared, and why it failed previously when I showed you the hoisted let. And obviously calling the function after you've defined the variable, you'll get the variable value output. Okay, so now a little bit more about var. So you can define a var and it will behave just like a let, except the risk with var is that you can actually redefine a var of the same name in the same scope. So I'll show you this now. With let and const, it would error out if I tried to do this, and so let provides you just an additional safety check. Basically, if you're working in a long function or something and someone else has defined a variable previously and you accidentally reuse that same variable name, you could end up with some unintended consequences. So that's why I try to use let or const a bit more, just because they're a bit more strict. So there's a bit less risk there. Once again, I can change the value of it, no problem there. No output, hi there. I can't create a let variable with the same name, and that's just due to the let restrictions. So basically, it performs the same as when you've got define a var within a new block of code, it'll do the exact same as if you're doing a constant or a let. So no need to worry about those two. But if you want to check them out in your own time, feel free. I'll post the code pen in the description. Variable, if you create an object that's defined using var, once again you can do the exact same as you can for a let. You can update properties, add new properties, and even assign a new value to the object. So it's var overall is pretty similar to let, except just that added safety when it comes to being able to do two declarations of the same variable name. Let won't let you, var will. So that's why I prefer to use let, and even better constant if it's something that shouldn't be changing in value. Hoisting also behaves differently, so a hoisted var is initialized to undefined, but let is not. So those are pretty much the differences. I hope that helped. I'll do some more JavaScript fundamental courses in the future. See you guys next time.